Hi, I'm going to talk a little bit about mixing bass. Sometimes the bass can be a bit tricky to mix. Sometimes the kick and the bass or other low-end instruments occupy the same space, so we need to carve out some space for the bass, bring out some definition so it can be heard, but without losing any of its heaviness, its bottom end. So the first thing I like to do is sidechain the bass and the kick drum. So if I just solo the bass there, you'll notice I've put a compressor on the bass track and I've assigned its key input to bus 1 there. And you'll also notice that I've assigned a send on the kick track, and I've also set that to key input 1. So if we listen to the kick along with the bass and just open that, we can see the kick level going in there, and if we adjust the ratio and the threshold on the compressor on the bass track, we can see that this compressor is being triggered by the kick drum. So if we adjust the threshold here, we can determine the amount of compression there. And we can hear the kick drum is just nudging the bass out of the way slightly. So we've already created a little bit of a distinction between the two, some separation there. Okay, so once I've used a little bit of side chaining, what I like to do is EQ the bass, and I've got a handy little tip here which should hopefully make it a little bit easier for you to EQ bass. Okay, so let's just listen to the bass on its own there. Now, one of the first things I like to do is, funnily enough, is remove all of the low end off the bass, everything below 250. So I put the filter in there and there we are, remove everything below 250. Now we can kind of focus on what's going on the bass in its mid-range. Straight away I can hear that it's a little bit light. It could do with a bit of clarity, a bit of presence. Okay, so to make it a little bit heavier in the mid-range, we'll boost somewhere around 400-500 hertz. So let's just boost that up a couple of dB. Okay, and we can hear that that's starting to sound a little bit heavier. Let's just do a comparison there. That's with, and that's without. Now also, I'd like to bring out a bit of clarity, a bit of presence on the bass on this particular track. Now, the clarity or presence of a bass guitar lives at around 1 kilohertz, 1.5 kilohertz. So if we give that a little bit of a boost there, let's say 1.4, and boost that up a few dB. Okay, so we can hear that this bass is coming to life now. The mid-range is sounding a bit more present. Let's just do a comparison again. So that sounds a little bit woolly, a bit muddy, and that's kind of a bit more present. Now, if we put the low end back in and just adjust the level a little bit, we don't want any clipping there, we can hear that the bass sounds more present, it's got more clarity. Let's just do a comparison. Woolly and muddy, and a bit more forward. Now if we just bring the kick back in, we can straight away hear a distinction between what's going on the kick and the bass. Better separation. We can just trim that a little bit so we don't get any overs, adjust the levels, bring in some of the other drums. I'm going to bypass the EQ on the bass again. There we have it, muddy, non-distinct with the EQ. The bass has been brought to the forefront, and we can now hear everything that's going on. Okay, well I hope you found my tips on mixing bass useful, and thanks for watching.